All right, here we go. This will be fun. It's the Pack-A-Day podcast, your Monday edition, both on the YouTube side and the audio side, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I don't even know where to start. No Andy Herman today. I guess we can start there. He's enjoying sunny Florida. It was sunny Wisconsin, except in the more aroma of depression and disappointment in the Green Bay area, which Andy Herman's used to. I'm Alex Strofe in for Andy alongside, per usual, the great Perri Goldstein. Perri, you're great. The Packers, not so much, as they lose 3 in a row, the third in the row. They lose Sunday to the Washington Commanders, a final of 23-21. The Packers now 3-4. Woof on the season as they get ready for Buffalo next Sunday. We thought we'd be sitting here saying they'd be 6-1 going into Buffalo. Perri, they're now 3-4, losers of 3 in a row. The offense, horrible. The defense, not so good. It may be a little bit better if it wasn't for a penalty. Pat O'Donnell was good when he was out there punting. I don't know what to make of this game. I don't know what to make of this team. The floor is yours.
This team is a train wreck.
Yeah.
This team is just an absolute train wreck. And it's one of those like car accidents where you just simply can't look away. And you know that driving by is going to make like traffic worse behind you, but you just like have to slow down and can't turn away. Like it's so bad. Like I think that if you had told me the way this early part of the season would have played out before the season started, I would have said there's no way. Like there's simply no way. The Giants, the Jets, the Commanders. I mean, you're talking about Giants and the Jets have obviously become good football teams this season. But like the Commanders are bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
This is you're losing to one of the worst teams in the league right now, which means that you are bottom of the barrel. The Packers are a bad football team right now. They are not playing well at all. Like this team can only, with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, can only score 14 points all game. Are you kidding? Like, are you kidding? And really we'll get into it, I guess, but I don't even know. The last 3 weeks have been me trying to rack my brain, trying to figure out what they can do. And I have no answers.
No, I don't either, Perri. I wish I could make you feel better. I wish I could make myself feel better. And I wish I could make everybody hanging out with us feel better. Look, it's a bad football team. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think last week was when I came to that realization against the Jets. Like, yeah, I don't think there's a good football team. And then they doubled down with stupid here in week number 7. The second half was just atrocious from an offensive standpoint. And to your point, right, it was 10 points last week against the Jets. It's 14, 21 overall, obviously 7 of them coming defensively. 14 for the Packers offense this week. I know there's no Devontae Adams. I know there's no MVS this year. But I don't know where MVP Aaron Rodgers went, right? Like, I can sit here, and I would still, and maybe we'll get into it, make the case for trading for a wide receiver as the trade deadline's next week. But if Aaron Rodgers is going to underthrow or overthrow or whatever, I mean, whatever he's been throwing out there, Perri, has not been good. It's not been Aaron Rodgers. However, I won't entertain the many tweets I saw after the game calling for Jordan Love to start.
No, we're not there yet. We're not
there yet. But it's been bad. It has been bad with Aaron Rodgers, which is confusing. Aaron Jones is a superstar. He's a playmaker. But really one of the few positives you can take away during this 3-game losing streak.
There are very few positives.
Yeah.
Like very few. Aaron Jones and Rashawn Gary are probably my only shining moments. I will say, like, this defense is probably doing everything that they possibly can right now.
Yeah.
But, like, if your offense cannot stay on the field, when your offense can't convert a third down all game, I mean, how much more can you expect from them? They were only in this game because of a Devondre Campbell pick 6. Like,
Yeah.
And I get it. You know, a Rasul Douglas scoop and score was negated off of a very, very ticky-tacky penalty. But again, you cannot trot out there, and expect to be considered any kind of contender when you're only scoring because of your defense. Like, that's simply unacceptable. So I don't know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers either. I have been saying this for a couple weeks now, and I'm really like loath to blame him because Rodgers has been and is one of the greatest players to ever play this sport. However, he's playing really, really poorly this year. He's playing really bad. He cannot go to the flat simply at all. He is missing guys. And I think for me, it's the attitude. There's no accountability at all. Like, you are missing guys. You are being inaccurate. You are throwing bad balls to your receivers who aren't Devontae Adams. They need you to be a little bit better. You need to elevate these young guys. You are not doing that. And then you're yelling at them. Like, there's just the whole thing feels really, really gross.
Yeah, no, it does. And I'm glad you brought up the accountability side of it, because I watched his press conference. He went about 9 minutes after the game, and zero accountability for his mistakes. It was the mental errors of the guys on the offense. It was, I'll have to look back at the tape, but literally no accountability. And to your point, he looks at Matt LaFleur after underthrowing Romeo Doubs and yells, "What are we doing?" I agree, Aaron Rodgers. What are we doing?
What are you doing?
Right?
What are you doing?
This offense makes absolutely. I texted this to you during the game, Perry. This offense makes no sense to me. And Aaron Nagler, of course, of Cheesehead TV, which you may be listening to us on, tweeted this during the game at halftime. What if that first half was the good half? And damn it, Perry, he was right. I mean, the piss poor first half was undermined by the second half, which was even worse for this offense. You mentioned the 0-6 efficiency on third down, obviously 0-1 on that on the fourth down late, but 0-7 in those situations is just totally unacceptable. And I did this the last time I was with you, probably about a month ago after one of the losses, maybe the Minnesota loss. It was just like the three and outs, the bad play calling. That was a little bit better. Aaron Jones was a little bit more involved today, Perry, but still not a ton. He only had 8 carries in this game, right? But
it's
luckily,
so unacceptable.
It just makes no sense still. And I get, you're playing from behind in the second half. You went to, or excuse me, in the late in the second half as the Washington Commanders went up in the third quarter, but you still got to get Aaron Jones involved as much as you can. And he was a little bit more involved today, but still, by looking at the box score, it was worse than I thought it was initially.
You don't change your entire game plan when you're down by 3. I'm sorry.
Correct.
You don't. You're not down by 3 scores. You're down by a field goal against the Washington Commanders. You want to still feed Aaron Jones. You've got a quarter and a half left of football. Clock's not a problem. It's just, look, I get the Commanders front is ferocious. They were having a hard time running the ball, like through the interior. Find other ways to get him involved. He got involved a little bit in the passing game. Great. It just, you can't play that unbalanced. I think that was like my takeaway from it is you are playing so unbalanced. Therefore, you are, and this has been a thing all season, you are basically showing your hand at that point to the defense. Yeah. They know exactly what you're going to do. So, of course, they're going to stop the passing game because you aren't running the ball at all. Even if you're running ineffectively, you still need to balance things out. And you know that Aaron Jones is the kind of player who's going to let one rip if he gets those opportunities. I say the same thing. Everyone's been asking, what's up with AJ Dillon this season? AJ Dillon is a rhythm back, right? AJ Dillon has said it himself. He's like, I need consistency in my game in order to start to gain those yards. And he's not being used consistently at all. So he's not showing us what he can do. And then in situations where you have him specifically for 4th and 2, for 3rd and 2, then you throw the ball 15 yards down the field. Like, nothing is making sense. And the offense is just really painful to watch right now. Everything feels really difficult. And the only time they're able to get downfield is a handful of chunk plays and penalties. And there's no rhythm. Even the scripted plays, It's just very difficult.
No, rhythm is the perfect word choice. I was just going to say, I haven't felt that from the Packers offense as a whole at all this season through 7 weeks, which is really odd. I go back and said it was worse than I thought it was. 35 passes to 12 carries on the day for the Green Bay Packers.
Bad.
Worse than I thought it was. 12 carries, only 4 for A.J. Dillon, and 0 targets for A.J. Dillon. So completely underutilized once again. And Aaron Jones had the beautiful touchdown catch in the fourth quarter, but that was about it, right? 12 carries, no touchdowns on the ground, 55 yards on the ground. It's just not enough. And, when he got the ball in his hands, good things happened, Perry, right?
Always.
Like good things happened when Aaron Jones had the ball in his hands. And it's just not enough again. And this is the 3rd, if not 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th even straight week we've said it hasn't been enough getting the ball in his hands. The offense, I don't know. Let me ask you this, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I want to ask it regardless. Where are you on the Matt LaFleur trust meter? Are you losing trust in Matt LaFleur as both the head coach and the play caller of this team?
No, I think it's really execution.
Yeah.
I appreciate Matt LaFleur for always coming to the podium with like legitimate, logical explanations of what he's been doing. And there hasn't been anything that I'm sitting there saying, I disagree with you. Maybe there are some in-game moments, but I'm not a head coach. I'm not on the field, right? For me, so much of this is execution. And we have, put some blame on Rodgers. We also need to talk about the drops, right? Like, you can't I think Rodgers said it in his press or after the game as well. Like, we are not good enough to be making those drops and still be moving this offense forward. Like, they have no margin for error right now, like absolutely none. And there are too many drops. And look, you're in week 7 now. There are no more rookie mistakes here. Like, you have enough playing time. You've been in this offense now long enough. Like, you are on that field for your hands if you are a wide receiver or a tight end, unless you're Mercedes Lewis. And you cannot be making drops and like completely derailing drives as well. So for me, it's way more execution than it is play calling. I think Matt LaFleur gets enough benefit of the doubt from the last couple of seasons.
Fair enough. I'll give you that. You talk about drops. I think Amari Rodgers had one pretty late on one of the few deep thrown balls of the game. Yeah. And of course he had one early with the fumbled, muffed more so punt return that led to a Commander's touchdown. So Amari Rodgers, rough game overall. It's been a rough couple of years for him. I think it's done for him. I think it probably should be done for him. I hate to call for somebody's job, but Amari Rodgers just ain't it, Perri. I don't know where you're at on Amari Rodgers, but a couple head scratching plays for him. Obviously, the muffed punt return being the most head scratching of them all. Why the hell is he still back there? I guess would be my question.
How many times do you have to make a mistake before you like? This is another. I feel like I've been repeating myself for the last.
Oh, we're all broken records after this 3-game streak.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, and that's how I feel with Amari Rodgers back there. Like, he has shown you that he cannot be trusted to secure the football. So why are you putting him back there, especially in a season with a team that even in the slightest hint of adversity, like a muffed punt and losing it to the opposing team deep in your own end zone, keeping them in the game, totally like switches the tide over, momentum changes, the wind's out of your sails. Like, those are the things that are killing the Packers this season. So instead of saying, let's be a little bit more conservative, let's try anybody else, we're putting somebody back there who isn't doing the job well, and it's like deeply impacting this team.
Yeah, crucial mistake. I mean, it led to a loss today, right? If you want to look at, and there's a couple things that led to a loss, but ultimately that didn't help, right? I mean, if you look at the margin of error, it was 2 points. That didn't help. So, yeah, no, I don't get it. It doesn't help. Christian Watson has been sidelined with that hamstring injury either, but nonetheless, it's just not good enough. He's not cutting it. That felt like the straw that broke the camel's back. But then Alan Lazard went out with an injury. So then, just due to lack of depth at that position, at least star players, Amari Rodgers is on the field in the fourth quarter. And he's catching a pass for a first down, and then he got the opportunity for the deep ball that he's unable to reel in. This team is just so confusing, and I just don't understand some of the – it seems like Twitter's been right this year, Perri. That's the thing that bothers me the most, because we're all idiots on our couches tweeting things into the ether, and yet we've been right on 99% of things this season.
This team has no identity.
None.
I don't know who they are. I don't think they know who they are. They don't play with any sense of urgency. And you heard it this week too at practice, how the energy was different, how they were ready for it. I saw some great quotes from like John Runyon Jr. Right, about, and another one, I know we're going to talk about the offensive line, so maybe we can go there next. But another one JRJ said, right, is that he feels really comfortable where he is at left guard. He likes it. He doesn't want to be moved over. And then what does this team do? They move him to right guard. I'm like, am I living in the upside down right now? I look, you put Elton back in a place where he thrives and is comfortable, but like, Elton can play right guard. Elton can play anywhere on the interior. Why not leave your guy where he's comfortable, not have so much shifting, right? You have 2 guys who are going to stay where they've been all season, and Jared Myers. You put Elton back at right guard, And the tackles you do with whatever you want to. I thought it was an interesting choice to move Yash to right and not keep him at left and then have Tom at right. Not an offensive line coach. I just think like keep your guys where they're most comfortable. There's just some like clear like miscommunication going on.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what that line looked like if David Bakhtiari's healthy and plays, which he didn't, and we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I think, Rodgers, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he was sacked Sunday, which was good. I think that's the first time in several weeks that's happened. So that's ultimately a good thing. I didn't see anything that popped off the television screen that was like, whoa, this O-line's the problem this week, which it certainly was last week. Played part of the problem against the Jets, obviously. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of all of that. David Bakhtiari being out is certainly frustrating. I mean, because you thought we had him back. You thought he was good to go. He was doing that rotating thing for a few weeks. Then he was a full go, and now he's got a week off. I don't know why he's missing games again. That's certainly not a good sign of where he's at. But ultimately, I get your point, right? I just don't know how much of it was due to circumstance and how much of it was due to just a personal choice by the O-line coach and by Stenovich, the OC.
Yeah, I think continuity is just really, really important on the offensive line, right?
Fair.
You have to continuity between the five of you, continuity with Rodgers, with your backs. And when you're making that many changes for a team that is just struggling with consistency across the board, it just didn't feel like a recipe for success. Now, I do agree with you. I thought the line played fine considering how good this Commanders front is. So whatever they did, they executed well enough, maybe not in the run game necessarily, but you're right. Rodgers stayed upright. So kudos to them. I just feel like the Packers are kind of grasping for something, some change, some one thing that's going to like make everything click. And I just don't know if there is that thing. I think it's going to have to be across the board with every single player, including Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is certainly a part of the problem. The lack of receivers, I still think is a huge problem, but I don't know. I do, right? Like, I don't think it's a major problem, but it's certainly a problem offensively. When you lose Devontae, obviously that's one problem, but there's no stud. There's no true number one. Nobody can stay healthy, it seems. Lazard goes out today again, and you obviously had Watkins return, but he's on a snap count. Cabo's out. Like, there's just, Christian Watson out again this week. So nobody can stay healthy in that room, it seems, number one. But number two, there's just not like a reliable number one. And we thought that would develop over time, and it seems like maybe it is with Romeo Doubs, but he hasn't done anything super impressive the last few weeks either. So, yeah, I still think it's a problem. But what I was getting to, Perry, was I don't know that trading for a guy with the deadline coming up necessarily makes a difference either, right? So I don't know what the answer is. And that's why I'm not paid Brian Gutekunst money to make those decisions. But we knew this was going to be a problem, this offense. We didn't know it was going to be this big of a problem because nobody stepped up the way we expected them to. And I think that's a huge part of the frustration. Rodgers is not playing MVP ball again, which is a huge part of the frustration. The O-line's been horrible most of the year, which is another part of frustration. The one thing in that offense that has been good is Aaron Jones, and he's continually been underutilized. So I don't know what to make of this offense. You use the term identity, which I love because it's the first time since the year McCarthy was fired that I felt we've gone this long into a season without knowing anything about this team, having any clue what this team is capable of. They can't put together two good quarters, two good halves, nothing. They can't
put together two good consecutive drives.
Correct. They haven't done that since the Tampa Bay game. And that was only two drives, and it was good enough to win them a game, right? Yeah. Like, there is no continuity. There's no consistency. Mark Tauscher tweeted it earlier today. He tweeted something along the lines of, this offense has no answers. I'm not sure they even know what the question is, right? Like, I think that's perfectly said. There's no identity for this offense. This defense, I think, is good, not great. It's good, but they're on the field too damn much. The Commanders' own time of possession, and it's maybe the fourth or fifth time this year the Packers have just gotten shredded in that department. It's so frustrating. It's so confusing, and it's so underwhelming for a team we thought, like I said earlier, would be 6-1 heading into this Sunday night game in Buffalo. They're 3-4. They're under 500. The division looks like it might not even be in sight. Minnesota in an idle week, bye week this week. So the record doesn't necessarily get better. but the Packers gets worse. So you fall even further behind in that race to a team that kicked your ass in week number 1 of this season. So I'm not feeling confident at all, Perri. I'm not even sure, and I can be overreacting. I might be. It's still Sunday night when we're recording. I'm not sure there's a playoff team. And the NFC isn't good. There's not a damn good team in this football league. The Eagles are good. The Giants might be good. That's about as long of a list as I've got, right? Like this is a weird NFL season. But the Packers are certainly not in that upper half of the league right now through 7 weeks, and that is ultra concerning. I've seen amazing Aaron Rodgers efforts at the end of the season, the run the table season, the relax season. We've seen some amazing Rodgers runs at the end of seasons, but this is not a year that feels like that's possible, which is so disheartening and underwhelming as a Packers fan who knew the window was so short, right? You signed Rodgers to still what I think is a nonsensical, in some senses, contract extension in the offseason. But it's the window's so short, right? You've got 2 years, maybe 3 left with this MVP all-time great quarterback, and you haven't gone all in. And now that shows. You're 3-4. Sorry, I just got to get that off my chest.
That was a lot. Okay, let's unpack that. I think we've said everything there is to say about the offense. There's nothing that this offense is doing well right now.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I do think that, not unfortunately, the hard truth for Packers fans is that we have had one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. And so we have always started every season, I think, at a greater advantage to everybody else, regardless of the cast of characters that has been around him. So the expectation is higher. And we go into the season, like you said, we knew this would be a work in progress, but nobody would have said it would be this bad because we have Aaron Rodgers. And then all of a sudden, you don't really have Aaron Rodgers, not in the true form of which that we are used to.
Yep.
And so maybe a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers magic was a really big Band-Aid for a lot of issues. And now we don't have that Band-Aid, and there's a lot of bullet holes bleeding all over the place on this offense. Like, that's just how I feel, because you're right. It's the offensive line, it's wide receivers, it's him, it's time of possession, it's control of the ball, it's maybe a little bit play call. It's so many things. And there's no foundation. There's no building blocks. There's no nothing. I mean, you think that you can build around Aaron Jones, but then he doesn't get the touches that he wants. You're just like, I don't know where you start. And you always were able to start from Aaron Rodgers, right? And you're not seeing the ability to do that. On the flip side, I do agree with you. This defense has shown what they can be. They're a little fickle. That's how I view them, right? They're a little fickle, but at the same time, you're right. They're on the field a lot. They've been constantly playing from behind. They leave the offense plenty of opportunities to get ahead so they can kind of clamp down on teams. They can't do that. You are not going to hold teams to 0 points every game, right? They're still holding them to 17, 14, 21. You have to be able to win games, and your defense does that for you, right? To your point about the playoffs, I agree. I don't think we're going into week 8 here. They're going to be 3-5. There is simply no world in which they beat the Bills off of the Bills bye, right? So you're looking at a team that's 3-5 with no real solution in sight. And I think this shit just spirals real fast. And I think it's really unfortunate. I didn't think the window was so shut. And now I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, 2020 and 2021 might have been it. They really might have been those opportunities. And I'm such an optimist, and I still want to say that it's early, but the Packers haven't shown any incremental improvements, right? It's not like we've seen the flashes, even in the run the table season, where you could kind of see it. And Aaron Rodgers had that attitude, that sparkle in his eye, no, we're going to be okay. There isn't any of that here. So right now, I don't see them winning the division. They're so far behind at this point. They still have an opportunity to make it to the playoffs, like you said, because the NFC is just so garbage. But I do not think that this Packers team is at all a contender.
I agree. Incremental improvements was an interesting phrase to use there. And that's something we relied on going into the season, right? We thought that's absolutely what would happen, especially offensively, which we've spent so much of our time on. And we just haven't seen that, right? We've seen maybe some small flashes out of a guy like Romeo Doubs, but nothing to write home about, nothing to sit here and say, yes, this is a team that's capable of winning the NFC, finally getting over the hump. We're just not even close. We're not even in the atmosphere of that. This is a team that can maybe sneak in and lose in the first round. Like that is the highest of my expectations through 7 weeks, which is absolutely not what I'd be saying with Aaron Rodgers running the show. He's taken a sharp step back from the past 2 years, which is maybe just the cherry on top of this disappointing shit show. Excuse my French. Let's wrap on this, Perri. You mentioned they don't have a chance at Buffalo. I was going to ask you to talk some optimism into Packers Nation because we so desperately need it. And I'm an eternal optimist. I don't think I'm capable of it. Doesn't sound like you are either. Expectations this week as we head to Buffalo, who's probably the best team in football.
I'm terrified of this game.
Yeah. I
was terrified of this game before the season. I was terrified of it every week leading up, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch. This Buffalo team. It's so funny. You watch the Bills as such a great counterexample to the Packers, and all the moves that they've made and the ability, how they have Josh Allen now, and you just, I think, see a lot in the Bills that you would want to see from the Packers. Totally. Guys like Isaiah McKenzie and Gabe Davis, who were nobody names, who have really stepped up, and you're looking at the Packers' talent and the potential that they have, and you're like, why can't we pull that out of them? Obviously Josh Allen is younger and has an arm that I just don't know if Aaron Rodgers still has. The Packers, again, I think have shown some signs of what they do well. I wish they would stay on script with that and not get away from what they do well. I don't have a lot of faith in this team right now at all. And you mentioned it earlier, and it's too early for Jordan Love, but I think at some point this season, depending on what the record is, come November, December, Packers also have a huge decision with him, right? They're going into a huge decision with him. So if this ain't the year, you might as well go see what you got, right?
If you're 5-9, yeah,
God, and I hate to look that far. I hate to look that far ahead. I hate to give up on this team, and I'm not giving up on this team because I don't want them to give up on themselves. So if I'm a fan and I want to be reflective of what I want my team to be, I want to be positive for them. I'm going to continue to cheer for them, and I want them to rally around themselves in this locker room. But in the back of my mind, I'm I guess the silver lining is, well, if this season goes to shit, there's so much left for them to still see. There's a lot that we can gain from this season, if you will, even if it's not a playoff season, if it's not a Super Bowl season. I think there's still a lot you can get out of this for the future. That's so not positive. I'm sorry.
No, it's not, but it's fine. They're 3-4. This is not where we expected we'd be at all, right?
And their record doesn't even reflect, honestly, how bad they're playing.
No, you're right. You're right. That win against Tampa Bay looked really sexy when it happened, and now it looks like, oh yeah, these are just two really bad teams.
Bad.
That's what
the
I'm
Bucs
saying.
are also 3-4 and bad.
That's what I'm saying. Looking back on it now, it's oh yeah, that makes sense, right? But when it happened, we were like, oh yeah, huge win, right? Huge momentum win, despite the shitty second half it was in that game. But I'm so taken aback by the tailspin this team has gone on. If we go and win in Buffalo on Sunday, I'm making Andy take this episode off the record. This is an episode that gets burned because Aaron Rodgers said it in his presser that we keep referring to, right? Maybe this is the best thing for this team. They lose 3 in a row. They get embarrassed a couple weeks straight. Maybe if they go to Buffalo, get embarrassed, that is the sign of, okay, we got to turn this around real fast.
Yeah.
That's the only optimistic spin I can put on it, courtesy of Aaron Rodgers. So Packers fall 23-21 to Washington. Not a very happy episode, not a very happy state of the Packers right now as they go to play the best team in football later this week. At Perri_Goldstein is where you can find her. Perri, tell us about all the awesome stuff you're doing.
Sure. So if you want to continue commiserating with me, Maggie and I will be back with our recap show Monday nights as normal on Pax What She Said podcast. We will have our preview show of the Bills come out later this week as normal. Just come join us in trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this team and our twice weekly episodes at PWSS podcast on Twitter.
Awesome. Yeah, going to be some really happy episodes this week, I would imagine, on the Packs What She Said podcast. Really uplifting stuff given the state of this team. Alex Strofe, you can find me on Twitter at Alex_Strofe. Thanks so much for letting us bucket dump a little bit here on the therapy edition of the Pack a Day podcast. As always, Perri.
Go Pack, go.
Jinx, we did it together. We got there.